Hello, team. How are you? And today's coach call is a performance and strategy call. And with Hyrox, literally this weekend or next weekend for most of us, what I'm going to do today in this call is I'm going to go through my top 10 performance and performance tips for Hyrox. Okay, so I'm going to dive right into it, and I know all of these tips are really key points that I focus on in my training and when I start to think about my race and what is important in the race. So I'm going to dive into it. Okay, so tip number one, and these are in no order, so it's not a priority, they're just my top 10 tips. Okay, control the start. All right, this is such a key point. Now, we've heard this in many ways. Don't go out too hard. It's not one at the start of the race, all of it. But the wording that I like to use and I want you to use is control the start. It does not mean we go slow, right? And in training and what we do here in our program is we learn about pacing. Hyrox is a workout. Like there was a definition of a workout that could help, describe like the skill of pacing, like Hyrox would be a great workout. So your ability to know how to pace is crucial. So if you know how to pace and if you've been doing the work and being diligent in establishing those paces, you don't want to go slow, right? But you need to be controlled. So basically, don't go fast. Don't go too fast. This is where your data, your ski times, your run times on the first one, and your strategy are all going to come into play because the excitement, the adrenaline, everything is going to want to speed you up. Okay, so you got to control yourself at the start. That is tip number one. All right, number two. Now, when it comes to Hyrox, and this is like when I very first started doing Hyrox training. I come from CrossFit and I spent six or 7 years in this CrossFit space. Now, if you think about CrossFit, there is so many movements that we do, and we do so many movements in the one workout, and sometimes we do it in a very short period of time. Like, we're talking like 12 minutes. It could be five or six movements. So transitions, right, is something that I really thought and I still do. Believe it's a really key advantage when it comes to Hyrox because it really taught me and it showed me how important transitions are and how much time you can make up on a quick transition, and also the mentality when it comes to transitions. Like we've seen people when they go from one movement to the other, how they can put their hands on their knees, take a big breath, walk over. That is not just wasting time. That is the mindset. That is telling yourself something during that versus someone who can just quickly start the next movement. That's a different mindset. So not only is it like quicker, right? But it's actually going to keep you in a much higher state as well. So transitions are really key. So the tip here is like just smooth transitions. We've got to understand that smooth is fast, right? Fast is smooth. So we don't want to be like really fast in the workout and then really slow in the transition. This is going to be slower overall just to smooth out a little bit, to go a little bit quicker and then, maintain a little bit faster through your transition, and just keep moving. I always like to say you just want to be constantly moving. You don't ever want to stop. And this can feel like it's a reduction in intensity, but it's actually going to be a lot quicker. Okay. Smooth transitions. This is also just another key point here. It's actually going to help you also minimize mistakes, right? Which is going to be a tip down low. But it comes from slowing down and being smoother in your transitions. Okay, tip number three, get water and electrolytes in sooner than later. So Hyro, it's a long event, right? And if you're going at it hard, like you're gonna dehydrate, like the body just can't hold on to hydration for that long. So we know it's a matter of just, it's not if, it's just when. So we don't want to get to those stages of the body starting to be dehydrated. There's not enough water in the cells, salts are depleted before we start to replenish. I learned this multiple times, and now like I'm looking to get electrolytes in from like station three, where I used to sort of be like five or six. So now I bring it early, and because as I'm running and I grab the electrolytes or I grab the water, I don't need to take a lot in. I don't need to have a whole cup. I just want to get a mouthful, two mouthfuls. And it's kind of like as I'm running and putting the water down and it's spilling everywhere a little bit, that's enough to get in still. So I don't need to slow down. It can be very, very quick. So by doing that sooner, going like station three, station five, station six sort of thing. You're gonna maintain your hydration levels and your salts, avoid cramping, as well as because when you start to dehydrate, you start to bring the temperature up in your body. When that temperature comes up, you start to diminish your performance, right? It starts to reduce. So hydration is key. Get it in sooner than later. All right. Now, Hyrox, it's even if it's in the middle of winter, it's an indoor event. So with this, it gets warm in the facilities. Now, especially like if you're doing an event in the heat, right? So like Melbourne's going to be hot. Um, you got to cool down. This again goes back to that point in that last one is when the body temperature starts to overheat, right? Your performance, your thinking capacity, everything is going to start to reduce. So you got to keep your body down. And sometimes this can feel like um, it can feel like you need more energy. And example, you might have lollies or a gel or something like that, but it's not the energy. You're just simply overheating. So what I did, and this worked amazingly in Brisbane, like it made me go from I'm almost feel like I'm dying to I feel back in the game and it allowed me to push really hard at the end, was I was getting water and I was just chucking it on my body, right? Just drench yourself. And even though the water's not super cold, when you're super hot and you're sweating and you're in a hot stadium, that water makes you even gasp for air. It cools your body down. And that was such a key thing that helped me get through Brisbane. Brisbane was quite warm. I think it was like 27 degrees on the day, which isn't anything crazy. It could be potentially hotter here in Melbourne, or wherever you are. But that's going to be a way to cool down because there's no other way to cool down, right? So throw that water on yourself. Okay. Tip number five. Okay. Now, this again comes down to your training, right? Zero mistakes. Like, don't make a mistake. And now some of you might be like, I don't plan on making a mistake. But this is why we got to train this into our training. And when I say train it in, it's like you got to understand the rules. If you haven't read the rule book, we got that in our resources. So go to the start here section or learn the movement section. Resources there, we've got all rule books there. You've got to study the rule books. Our content on social media is all about the rules. Got plenty of information there. You can ask questions. So because if you make a mistake, it can result in a penalty, which is like 3 minutes, 5 minutes out the door. Like imagine how hard you got to train to get 3 minutes faster in a race. So just by minimizing that mistake, right? Now these mistakes and penalties, they're not scary, right? They're not scary. They're just like if you just don't give it any thought, right? If you're really naive to the fact that you think you know it all, it's like you can make a mistake. Um, and it's not to say if it happens, it's the worst thing in the world, but we train to make zero mistakes. Okay. So really, really focus hard on that. Get to know your track map, get to know your strategy, how you're going to go, where you need to run. And even on the course, don't get overwhelmed. It's like literally just break it down really simple. Like go into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I've heard so many things where people are like, "Oh, the course threw me out because station two was in the middle of the arena or whatever it was." It's like it didn't make sense. It's like yeah, because you overthought about it. You overthinked. It's like you just needed to go to one, to two, to three, to four, right? It's as simple as that. Okay. So zero mistakes. All right. That is super, super key. Think about like the burpees, right? Don't have a staggered foot. And it doesn't matter what other people do. It doesn't matter if someone jumped with their foot on the line, or it doesn't matter if they're doing it wrong. Worry about you, right? Worry about you because that's going to be a lot quicker. Okay. Number six, have two plan A's. All right. Have two plan A's. I don't like the idea of plan B because plan B is like you're planning for a subpar plan, right? But we have two plan A's because you have the plan A. It's like, all right, this is what's going to happen because that's our best version. That's our like full, like a little bit of risk, right? To really get it the best time, you got to have a little bit of risk element to your plan. But then what we got to do is we got to go, okay, but if that doesn't happen, right, then we're going to do it this way or I'm going to do it this way, but to still try get the same result, right? It's just having two plan A's. So an example of this, like me and Gab, my Hyrox partner in mixed doubles. So we had two plan A's for like example, most of the stations. So the idea is that Gab was gonna no. Gab was gonna finish on the run, I was going to start on the station because Gab's a faster runner than me. So the idea there is that Gab can finish the station because she has the ability to get back on the run better and allows me to catch my breath. So I was going to start the stations. It was like one of the burpees. We got a good video of this. We came into the burpee station and I was gassed. So she was looking at me like, "You're going to go?" But the second plan A was if I wasn't ready to go, you're just going to go. And then we're just going to, change that up. So it was two plan A's and that worked really well because the first one made sense, right? But in actual the race and in practice, it didn't work out that way. So we had to have a contingency there, right? And there's multiple, things like this that we think about in the race. If you're doing solos, right, you might go, "Yep, I'm going to do my burpees like one every 4 seconds and be smooth." And then next minute you can't even do every 6 seconds. So then you got to have a different idea and go, "Okay, well if that happens there, so if I can't do my burpee speed there, what does this mean? Maybe I got to run faster through the rock zone, or maybe I got to pick it up on this station that I know isn't going to be as grueling." And see, you then have to reconfigure and start to think about what another plan A strategy could be if that happened, because not everything's going to work out exactly the way. Even if you've done Hyrox multiple times, there's always going to be factors throughout the race and on day, sometimes out of your control, or sometimes, just as you discover as the race goes on. So yes, having two plan A's. All right. So this next point, tip number seven. So this is going to be really key for doubles. Okay. But it's communication is key. Like communication is so important. Now, I'm a big believer that you should. That's why a lot of training should be done together outside of the race. So in training, whenever you can, and this doesn't necessarily need to be Hyrox training. I think it's so important for you and your partner just to create a really good bond, create a great friendship, but also get to know each other better and also learn how to communicate better. So by doing workouts, by doing runs, by going for walks, by just spending time together, you learn how to communicate, but also you should talk about how you want to communicate to each other. So, me and Gab in our Hyrox partnership, like I've established myself as sort of the main communicator or the leader of conversation. Not that she can't talk, but I know that I'll come up with ideas and then she'll give me input. And I tell her, "I need you to give the input," right? So we have those roles because sometimes there's one person that likes to take charge, and there's another person that sometimes just likes to do what's they're being told to do. So you got to establish that. Now that's typically a really good partnership when someone's style they complements each other. Now, however, if you've got two people that are strong-minded and have ideas and want to do it, then you got to communicate that as well. You don't have to go, "Okay, I'm going to say my input, you're going to say your input, and then we're going to have a really good negotiation." Because the art of negotiation is two people trying to achieve the same thing. So then you got to understand that, come up with your two plan A's, or come up with your two ideas, or come to a conclusion, or come to the conclusion that you don't have a conclusion. So you have to be so clear in communicating because you can't be out there confused or just hope someone takes the lead. And maybe that's why in training, if you have those two strong personalities, that you need to go, "Okay, well, for these stations, you're going to take charge. Maybe these ones, I'm going to take charge." Something like that. So you give each other roles, right? And then, Matt, if you've got two people that are just like easy communicators, they're like, "Whatever you want to do, whatever you want to do, I don't care." Like, "Yeah, that sounds good. Sounds good to me too." That is also like, that's a dangerous combination of communication because no one's there, no one's making hard decisions. So in that case, someone has to go, "Okay, like, let's do this. Is that okay?" And you just have to be really firm. But communication is going to be so, so key because the best communication that you can do and get to is when you don't even need to talk at all, where you've just spoken about it, you run through it, you understand it, and on the day you just look at each other, you nod, go, "Yep," finger point, whatever it is. It's like, because you know the other person, like you're not like, "Hey, do this," or you go, and then the other person's like, "Oh, are you upset at me? Are you this?" It's like, "No, I'm not." It's like, "Go," like I'm dying. So see, that's poor communication because someone thinks that potentially you're having a go at him, but you're not. It's like, so that's where, like, I know with Gab, if I'm like, "Gab, go," she doesn't like take it personally. She's just like, "Go time. He said go, like, because he knows he must be hurting or he must say that for a reason. So you got to trust each other and have each other's back. And it just comes to obviously having those communications. Now, obviously, that's in a race situation. So if I was just talking to Gab normally, like, Gab, do this, like, that's rude. So we don't do that. So we got to understand how we need to communicate in the race. We need to know how to communicate in training, and we just need then have a good relationship and communicate well to each other also outside of training. All right, huge point there. All right, tip number 8: always listen to your judge. Okay, like in this group, I would hope nobody's arguing with your judge, right? If you are, I think we need to have a talk because we shouldn't have this kind of mindset anyway. I don't think anyone has this. Um, so the thing is, like the judge, whether they're a really great judge or whether they're the worst judge in the world, right? The reality is, if someone calls a no rep or if someone says you got to go back and do this or whatever it is, just freaking do it. Because the time it takes for you to argue, to get your point, to not get your point across, right, is just going to put you in a bad mood, right? It's going to waste more time, right? And this goes back, the reality is the blame is always on us. The blame is always on us because I feel like if I'm in a position that someone can call me out. Like if I'm in a position where my tone might be on the line, or if I'm in a position where my depth on my squat is in a position to be called a no rep, right? If it's not convincing, if I don't do things in a convincing, clear way, right? Then that's on me. So I want to avoid being put in a position that a judge might be like, "Ooh, no rep," or "Ooh, go do that again." That means I haven't done it clear enough and good enough. So that's why you just got to make sure you don't even get yourself in that position. But even if you're so like clear, like you're so like that was my foot was behind the line, like yeah, I was the wrong person, you picked me out incorrectly. It's like just do it because in the heat that they're not gonna most judges will not like reverse their decisions because now you're attacking their ability to judge. So just go back, do it, get on with it. It's as simple as that. Okay. So much time and I've seen people have like ruined Hyroxes just because they get caught up in like a judge. It's like pff, move on, get through it. And again, if for most of us, we're there to set our own personal records. So again, it's like if it wastes 5 seconds or 10 seconds, it most likely won't throw you too much off track with your goal. Okay, tip number 9, we're almost there. Tip number 9 is carry a gel in your pocket. Okay, so it's a long race. 1 hour, 1 hour 30. You could even be out there for 2 hours. Now, the body, okay, quick nutrition information here is the body has 90 minutes of max storage. 90 minutes. So in our muscles, we can only store 90 minutes of fuel. So if you're out there for 90 minutes, well, number one, right? Okay, well, Damien, it's got 90 minutes of fuel. And I'm gonna go under 90 minutes. I don't need to replace my energy. We're not like a car, right? We're not like a car that we can operate and keep driving until the fuel tank is empty, right? As our fuel gets closer towards the end, right? Then the body starts to transition to different energy sources, or it's not going to be able to utilize those energies. It's almost like think about like the car analogy, but as the tank gets towards the bottom, the fuel gets like thicker and harder for the engine to burn, right? So that's kind of like what it's like with our body. So that's why we want to like, think of that car, you drive it, you get to about halfway, it's just below half full, then you want to put some more fuel back in, top it back up, right? And then it can just, have a bit more to finish. So that's where like a gel or even two gels could potentially work really well for you. So I carry one in my pocket. It worked really well in my last Hyrox at Brisbane. I took it on the rower, so mixed doubles, which is good. Gab was rowing, and I just ripped it out, took my gel, put it back in my pocket. No, I didn't put it back in my pocket. I threw it in the bin. You put it either back in your pocket, do not throw it on the course, or in the bin. But that was perfect, right? It gave me a boost of energy, it gave me all those sugars. Like sugar is magic. Sugar is absolute magic in a race. So much needed. Now with gels, make sure you test out gels before race day because you could shit yourself, right? Not gonna lie. Maybe not during the race, but after it, in training, something like that. Get one that sits well with your stomach. That is really, really key. A good brand one knows this. Don't just go to like the supermarket and buy like the Winners one or something like that. Typically, they're just made with like just cheap sugars. So, okay, get a gel in, get some pre or intra race nutrition, right? So the drink is an electrolyte drink that they'll have on course. So the great news is you don't really need to bring electrolytes onto the course. I think they use U Thrive, which is an amazing product. So make sure you get that in for your electrolytes and salts. Again, these are different to carbohydrates. Electrolytes and salts just literally help like the electricity charge, I guess you could think of it, between the cell, muscle, and the nerve. But carbohydrates is the fuel. Okay. All right. Last one here. All right, now this is actually a game changer. This can be a huge game changer. Is get a good warm up in. Okay, it's like yes, Damien. Why do I need a good warm up when I'm going to be out there for an hour and a half? Okay, great question. So because you need to prime your body. All right, that's the thing. You need to prime your body. So when you start to warm up, right? If you just go from 0 to 100, you're going to take all this oxygen, all this blood that is needed to do the race, right? The amount that's needed. And then you're trying to get it through a pipe that's only this big. So all this volume, trying to get through a pipe this big. And it can create a blockage, right? And this is where it can really not only slow you down at the start, right? Okay, but you'll get into it. But what it can do is it can create basically it like backs up the system. So it means that now the body is in a demand, such a high demand that it can't process it quick enough, right? And it can ruin the performance of your whole race because the whole time you're under extra load just to try catch up. It's almost like, when you see like a Black Friday sale and everyone's lining up the front of like, Maya or David Jones and they're all rushing into the door and it just gets bombarded. That's kind of like what going from no warm up to the race is. And it's just crazy. It's just crazy. Where when you get that warm up, right, then you just become like a highway, like, a highway that's not banked up, right? It means high volumes going through, a lot of cars going through, but they're all moving very fast. So that warm up, right, allows you to make sure that blood, oxygen is being and is now transporting around the body really, really quickly and effectively. So then when you start the race, right, your heart rate's already a little bit high, but you've got the blood up, cars are flowing down the highway, right? And you start that race and now the intensity is going to come, but you've got the traffic flow, right? The blood and oxygen is going through and the highway can handle that, right? You create that autobahn of a type of highway. So warm up, typically I like to do 40 minutes out for 20 minutes, all right? So 40 minutes out from the race for 20 minutes, right? And you want to get your heart rate, you want to be sweating a little bit, you want to start to perspire, and then you want to shut it off for about 20 minutes before the race, right? That's a great warm up. So even though you cool down a little bit in that 20 minutes, but the highway now is flowing. You've opened up that pass. The veins, right, have gone from small pipe. Now, because we dilate, we actually open up the veins, hence why now we can create more blood flow. That's why when you see people and they have all veins come out, or if you train when you're cold, you don't see your veins. When you get nice and warm, you see a bit of vascularity, and that's because now the veins are dilated a bit more. They've opened up, more blood flow. You can literally increase so much more. So warm up is going to help your Hyrox massively. Crew, top 10 tips. Job done. All right. These are going to help you on race day. If you've got any questions on the back of this, please reach out. Okay. For those who have the Hyrox this weekend, oh my God, good luck. Smash it. Can't wait to see your results. And for guys who got Hyrox coming up soon or even early next year, again, think about these tips and think about how that you can apply them to your training as well and start to prepare. Start to prepare for your race. All right, everybody. Have an amazing weekend. Best luck at Hyrox, everybody. And I'll talk very soon.